Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahabushai, Bahasham, Barakahakodash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahabushai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who ruled and teach well, and peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another video, and in this video, I'll be reading from an article on endoftheamericandream.com titled, "As Police Brace for a Summer of Violence, Murder Rates Are Absolutely Exploding All Over America." And this is just an example of the love of many waxing cold as we live in the last seconds of these last days of the rulership of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites, or the so-called white people. What we're about to read about is going to be the new normal. Things aren't going back to the so-called good old days as we get closer and closer to Yahawashi Hamashiach, whom the world ignorantly refers to as so-called Jesus Christ's second coming. Things are going to get more violent, vicious, and depraved out here. Hey, all those apocalyptic and societal collapse movies you people have been watching over the years, you're about to become the stars in those movies, your own personal movies. This is Matthew chapter 24, verse 12. And in this chapter, Yahawashi Hamashiach was telling his disciples of the signs to look for to know that his second coming was near and that the end of the age of the rulership of the heathen nations was at hand. And even though he was talking to his disciples in the past, he was really speaking to his disciples today, since we're living in those times. As it says in Romans chapter 15, everything written aforetime was written for our learning. Matthew 24, verse 12, and because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. And when we go into that word iniquity in the Strongs, it's G458.
Strong's G458, Anamia.
Anamia, the condition of without law, because being ignorant of it, because of violating it, contempt and violation of law, iniquity, wickedness. And this is ultimately talking about being without the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bahasham Yahawashi, which is the only right way to live by. And just look at the state of the world, because it's not following after the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bahasham Yahawashi. It's in complete disarray and chaos. You've got a bunch of degenerates out here living by that do as thou wilt spirit, especially in the United States of America. And it can also be talking about just people violating the laws of their countries, which you're seeing in the United States of America. Hence why there's just a disregard for the police and an uptick in murder rates all across the country. And hey, what have you been hearing lately? Talks of defunding the police and a lot of police officers leaving the force due to new policies that they find very restrictive. And the police force has already been very small compared to the population at large. So as things get worse and more police leave the force, just expect more chaos and anarchy out here, which is ultimately going to bring in a state of martial law. So like we always tell you, sincere Akim, right now you should be spending this time of liberty building up your spiritual bank account and doing whatever you can to stay in the good graces of your power, Yahweh Bahasham Yahawashi, so you can have that protective hedge over you for when all these calamities of Jacob's trouble really pop off. Because we're going to need Yahweh Bahasham Yahawashi to get through the madness that's about to come. Let's get back to that article. It appears that the violence in major U.S. cities is about to escalate even further because the love of many is waxing cold and iniquity or lawlessness is abounding. Summer is usually the worst season for violent crime in America, and authorities are openly warning us that a summer of violence is approaching. But at this point, it is difficult to imagine things getting worse because we are already in the midst of a horrific crime wave. According to the New York Times, homicide rates were up by an average of more than 30% in 2020. And on average, they are up another 24% so far in 2021. Never before in U.S. history have we seen homicide rates rise so quickly on a nationwide basis, because we're living in the last seconds of the last days of the rulership of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites, the last seconds of America before it's completely wiped off the face of the earth by 200 million nuclear missiles. Sadly, it appears that George Floyd's tragic death was the spark that set off this crime wave. If you doubt this, just check out these numbers from Chicago. The year before Mr. Floyd's death, from May 25th, 2019 to May 25th, 2020, there were 2,885 shootings in Chicago that resulted in 521 deaths. From May 25th, 2020 to May 25th, 2021, there were 818 deaths from 4,562 shootings, an increase of almost 60% in both categories, according to Christopher Herman, a professor of law and police science at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice. You would think that things would settle down after a while, but homicide rates all over the nation have surged even higher here in 2021. For example, the homicide rate in Houston is up 27% so far in 2021. On Friday, the city had a total of 178 homicides for 2021, according to the HPD. That number is a 27% increase from 2020. Now, with 10 more so far this weekend, the number is on the brink of 190. It's not going to get better anytime soon, said Mike Knox, Houston City Council member and vice chair of the council committee. Hey, this is a guy in his right mind. Things aren't getting any better. Like I said at the beginning of the video, this is the normal. There is no more going back to the good old days of peace and harmony. We're living in the days of disharmony, chaos, and destruction before this current age of the rulership of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites, is taken out of the way, and the kingdom of heaven, where the true children of Israel, who are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, are going to rule for eternity under the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, where iniquity will no more abound. In other large cities, things are even worse. In Los Angeles County, the homicide rate has risen more than 95% up to this point in the year. LA County Sheriff Alex Villanueva has bad news about crime. So far, crime statistics, we don't have good news, unfortunately. We're looking at a 95.24% increase in homicides. That is comparing the same time frame this year to that time frame in 2020. Villanueva says many other types of violent crimes are also up, including aggravated assault, up 13%, and grand theft auto, up 40%. Sheriff Villanueva accuses the Board of Supervisors of not addressing the issue and called it an existential threat. In New York City, subway riders are increasingly becoming targets of violent crime. In some cases, the criminals are after money, but in other cases, there doesn't seem to be any particular motive for the attacks, because the love of many is waxing cold, and people are just becoming more depraved out here to where they're just committing crimes and assaulting people for no reason other than to fill their own sick desires. I read a news article recently on how a man was shot to death because he went and told the people cutting his neighbor's lawns to clean up their grass clippings, which got pushed onto his own lawn. And down here in New Orleans, it's past 100% of the carjackings going on. Hey, there was a woman with her 3-month-old child in her car that got carjacked, and she told the carjackers, hey, why are you doing this? I've got my 3-month-old baby in the back. And the carjacker told her, man, I don't give a fuck about all that. It's real out here. And hey, that's exactly how it's going to continue to be. Real out here. Senseless violence. Overall, the number of transit-related crimes that were reported in one recent week was more than twice as high as the number reported in the same week last year. Citywide statistics showed that subway crimes are occurring drastically more frequent this year than they were in 2020. 55 transit-related crimes were reported in the past week alone, compared with just 21 in the same period last year, according to NYPD Compustat. For the first time in decades, many New Yorkers are afraid to ride the subway, and that isn't going to change for the foreseeable future. In other parts of the country, Uber drivers have become prime targets for criminal predators. Criminals know that Uber drivers are almost certainly not going to be armed, and they are often driving very nice vehicles. So we have seen an epidemic of Uber drivers getting carjacked, and in some instances, they are even being murdered. Fox 32 obtained Ring doorbell video that captures 4 males with hoods approaching a blue Ford 4-door car. One male gets in the back. Inside, there was a struggle with Uber driver, 38-year-old Joel Shelstrady from Indiana. The video shows a suspect open the door, but it stops right as the father of 3 was shot in the head, the love of many waxing cold. Before all of this craziness started, being a driver for Uber or Lyft was a way to make some decent money on the side. But now I am recommending that all my readers avoid this kind of work from now on. A little bit of extra money is not worth the potential risk. These days, even kids are turning into violent criminals. In fact, 2 kids just got into a terrifying gun battle with police in Florida. A 14-year-old girl and a 12-year-old boy fled from a Florida juvenile home and broke into a house where they found a small arsenal, a shotgun, an AK-47, and plenty of ammunition. When confronted by sheriff's deputies, the pair opened fire, sparking a gun battle. The gunfire ceased only after deputies wounded the girl, who was in critical but stable condition Wednesday, a day after the violence unfolded near Deltona, about 30 miles or 48 kilometers northeast of Orlando. The boy then surrendered. So it's not just adults committing violent acts or being criminals. The young children are starting to get in on the action as well. And that's also a part of biblical prophecy. This is 2 Esdras chapter 5, verse 8. There shall be a confusion also in many places, because iniquity or lawlessness is abounding, the majority of these people not following after the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. And with the way things are looking, these people are not following after the laws of their own governments. And the fire shall be off sent out again, and the wild beasts shall change their places, and menstruous women shall bring forth monsters. Menstruous women, Western feminist-minded women, girl power, I can do bad all by myself-minded women, single mothers shall bring forth monsters. And best believe that 12 and 14-year-old that escaped that juvenile home and got into that shootout with the police are monsters. And for once it wasn't Israelite or so-called Negro, Latino, or Native American children. That was actually 2 Edomite or so-called white kids that got in the shootout with the police. Hey, these white kids are starting to turn up like these Israelite kids have been turning up. And also in Florida, a little while ago, there was a 14-year-old Edomite named Andy Fucci who stabbed a 13-year-old Edomite named Tristan Bailey 114 times, killing her. The thin veneer of civilization that we all take for granted on a daily basis is steadily disappearing, and we have entered into a time when cities across the nation are descending into chaos. Because iniquity shall abound, the love of many are waxing cold. When I look around, I don't even recognize the country anymore. Millions of our young people have seemingly gone completely nuts, but of course, this is a direct result of how we have raised them. Menstruous women bringing forth monsters. I wish that I could offer you some hope that things will turn around, but as one of the officials that I quoted above openly admitted, it's not going to get better anytime soon. Point blank, period. So that's it with this video. And with this video, I hope you sincere Akim are edified. Just keep strong and keep pushing this word. We're almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites, before the kingdom of heaven is ushered in and iniquity will no longer abound, because this planet will be run under the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai, by the true children of Israel, who are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. So as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.